Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Christine. I am a professional psychic medium and spiritual teacher, and I am here to help bring collective messages to serve the highest good of all who find my channel. Today, I wanted to jump in and do a special message to address some of the collective craziness that we have been living in here on planet Earth. I think most of us are being impacted, affected in some way. And we have a lot of events unfolding right now on the collective stage, on the political stage, that are just creating a lot of fear, insecurity, and uncertainty amongst the people of all countries. I really don't think this is one country specific. I'm here in the USA. I know we have had a lot of disruption, a lot of polarity, and a pretty steep division as far as our politics here in this country. And this has only ramped up the sense of uncertainty about what is coming and how we should be prepared for it. And I think that there's been some backlash for the spiritual community around not fully addressing some of these issues or not speaking up enough on some of these points. I do want to say I myself have held back on this for a number of different reasons. And one of those is that as a spiritual teacher, part of my role is to support all of humanity. And that means not choosing sides, even though I might have opinions myself about different things. And it's hard with the intensity level, the passion, the heat, the fear, the stakes are high with a lot of the things we have going on right now. And it's hard to navigate through that and do it justice and do it in a way that is fair, that is impartial, that is supportive, without getting stuck in the muck or adding to the already tense polarity and division that exists. And so I'm going to try to do this justice today because my guides have really been putting it on my heart that people need help to go through this. We have a lot happening, and I am seeing an increase in fear, especially over the last couple of months as we have nations at war. We have a lot of threats of shortages around oil and fuel and, electricity, and it's swirling and building momentum right now. So I really just felt called that people need help, people need support, people need to understand more of the higher perspective or the spiritual perspective of what is happening on our planet right now. Like, what the is happening on planet Earth right now, right? I think that's what a lot of us are feeling and thinking and wanting to know. Is it going to get better? Is it going to get worse? What do we need to do to prepare for this? Should we be preparing? I hear a lot of people are like, is this the apocalypse? Is this the end of the world? Well, let me address that for you right now. This is not the end of the world. But it most definitely is the end of the world that we have known up to this point in time, because the world is changing. The most important thing that I can convey to those of you who are watching this message, whether you're watching it today, when I am recording it, it is April the 17th, 2026, when I am recording this, or whether you are watching it at some point in the future down the road, I hope that it will find you at just the right time when you need to hear it. That is my intention. But one of the most important things I can convey with this message is to understand that while we have all of this breaking down and disruption and falling apart of old structures that is happening, underneath all of this chaos and craziness, there absolutely is a divine plan. And this is all leading us to a better place. It's just not pretty. It's just not easy. In order for new things to come in, we need radical change. And radical change means that old structures that have been pinning things in place and preventing those changes from happening and unfolding have to come apart. They have to unravel. They have to come down. And that is not going to be an easy process. And that is what we're experiencing right now. Energetically, the earth has shifted. We are in the Aquarian age. We are moving into more 5D energies. And I want you to understand that this isn't like a dividing line. It's not like, okay, we're 3D today and we're 5D tomorrow. This is like a gradual mingling, mixing of energies as they shift gears. Think of it like oil and water in a jar together mixing. And it takes time for one to displace the other fully. That's what we're going through. It's the mixing of these energies. So we've got 3D, 4D, 5D energies all kind of partying and hanging out on the earth right now and mingling. So we're going to be seeing some shifts and changes happening because of that. It's creating this disruption. There's a lot of things that I'm going to talk about in this video that I'm going to be mentioning. What's happening ultimately is that old 3D structures aren't being supported anymore because those 5D energies are picking up and increasing. And the planet, the energy, the vibration of our planet has risen to the degree now that certain things are simply no longer supported, meaning that if we try to do them and force our way to do them, that they just won't work well anymore. They won't produce results or not the kinds of results that we are expecting or that we have gotten from doing those same things in the past. There may be instant consequences or karma that happens if we try to continue to engage in the types of behaviors that no longer are supported by these new Earth Aquarian age energies. Humanity is still sort of fighting against this energy. We're still kind of battling through, working through this. We're still purging some of those old lower energies from within ourselves so that we can bring more light and higher vibration energy onto the planet. This is a lot. There's just a lot happening. So that's why it feels chaotic. That's why it feels disruptive. But know that underneath the crazy, circus sideshow that we are seeing playing out on the collective, especially, on our political stage, is really symptomatic of a deeper level shift that at its core is a positive shift. It's actually a shift that is occurring to better humanity, to put us in a better position. And it will, but it can't fully anchor in until we work out some of the kinks first. We've got to get some of this old energy out of the way. And some of us are still holding on to it. Some of us are still clinging on to what is old and what is comfortable and what is familiar and what is known. So we can expect wake-up calls, is how Spirit put it. If you think back to COVID in 2020, that was a wake-up call. It was a wake-up call. It was a wake-up call to humanity to look at life different. And I don't think there's anybody probably watching this video, if there is, you're probably in the minority, who would be saying that is not such a dividing line, the year 2020, that nothing has ever been the same since. And we're going to continue to see events like that happen. And those events are unfolding to support us and to help us to essentially clear the collective blinders off, okay? It's helping us to see more of the true nature of the universe, the true nature of the earth, to understand more of our own true nature as spirit, as a soul in a human body, and to understand and tap into more of our own intuitive power, more of our own connection to the earth and to the divine. Ultimately, these shifts are happening to lead us in new directions. So I want to talk about some of these things that are kind of on everybody's mind right now. We have a lot of things that are generating fear. Fear ultimately is a lower vibrational energy. However, it's normal to feel afraid. We are emotional beings, and it is appropriate to feel fear in the light of real or perceived threats to our existence, to our ability and capacity to survive and to thrive and to continue to provide for ourselves and our families, especially with regards to basic needs, right? Food, clothing, shelter, medicines, healthcare, all of those basic things seem as though they're really coming under threat at the moment. And that is very triggering for us as human beings. And we're designed that way. So if you're feeling afraid, do not be feeling down on yourself or beating yourself up for feeling fear. That's really normal. And so many of us are feeling it on some level or another at this moment in time. So I want you to know, number one, you're not alone. And number two, we can normalize and validate that fear is kind of a normal, rational response to have. With that said, fear is not an energy we want to stay in. It's not an energy we want to soak in. It's not an energy we want to continue to feed or to expand upon. Because ultimately, that keeps us really anchored in our root chakra, in our base chakra. And where we want to go is we want to clear out and purge all of the gunk in our chakras so that we can move up through the heart and up into the higher chakras ultimately. So we don't want to get stuck and mired in issues around the root. We want to clear them out as quickly as we can and remind ourselves that we ultimately are held and supported by the universe. We are all learning surrender, trust, and faith as a result of some of these more resource-based disruptions that we're collectively experiencing. So I wanted Spirit to help us address some of the very specific and real things that are unfolding on the collective stage right now, on the earthly stage, that I think are causing anxiety or that people have a lot of concerns and questions about. As a psychic and medium, I am able to tap into my guides, to tap into ascended masters and angels, and receive information and transmissions that can support us as we go through these kinds of transitions. And so I asked my guides very specifically about some of the things that I think are on a lot of people's minds right now. And I want to share some of the information that came through. So I want to start with one of the things I think, especially for those of us here in the USA, but I don't think this is unique to the USA. And I think that's one of the things we're going to see more and more and more moving forward. There will not be problems that affect only one group of people or only one country anymore. We are learning, honestly, that we are all one, that we're all connected. And we are more connected now, I think, in the history of humanity, probably than ever before, with internet, with the ability to fly anywhere in the world. We can spread information quickly from one side of the globe to the other. At no other point in humanity's history has it been this connected. Our financial systems, our trade systems, they are all our global energy systems. They are all tied together. What happens in one place absolutely affects other people. And I think that's ultimately the lesson that we are learning. And that lesson is hard, and it's creating disruption. It's opening our eyes. It's showing us that the way maybe that we have been used to doing things might not work anymore. That we might have to come together more in order to achieve some of our goals. So one of the things that's been really coming up as a hot button issue, I think for a lot of us that we're worried and concerned about, is the war that we have going on right now in the Middle East, the Strait of Hormuz, and some of the issues surrounding that, as well as should we be expecting that we might be having shortages of important resources, things like oil, gas, electricity, food, and, just some of the fallout that might occur from some of these things that are happening in that area of the world right now. And so I threw some of these questions over to the guides, to Spirit, to address. I'm going to start actually with, shortages, because I think that's kind of a hot button issue that a lot of us have fear about. It's a very triggering concern, and it's a real concern. And it's not really something we can ignore. My goal is to bring you the truth. The truth is not always pretty. The truth is not always soft. Sometimes it's hard. But I do want you to understand that ultimately you have nothing to fear. That no matter what happens, we are held. We all have spiritual helpers, guides, and angels. You have a purpose for being on this earth at this time. And ultimately, we will all get through this. We will get by. With that said, it's also helpful for us to know what to do and to prepare with things that are coming our way. And so, And we have some collective lessons that I think can guide and help us so that we make good choices that are going to be supportive of the new energies that we're trying to bring onto the planet, without fueling or feeding some of the older ones that we're trying to purge at the same time. So I'm going to start with oil, gas, electric grid, food shortages. And the short answer that I got from Spirit was an absolute yes to all of those things. Yes, we are going to experience shortages in all of those areas. Now, I want to also say that some of these are things that are sort of unfolding slowly over time. So it's not like everything all at once. And I think that's an important distinction, because sometimes when we think, oh my God, we're just not going to have any food, and we're not going to have any fuel, and we're not going to have any electricity, and it's all going to happen at the same time, that's incredibly frightening and produces a high level of anxiety that I don't feel is actually warranted. I don't believe it's going to happen that way. And I do not personally see us at any point being fully without those things. Okay. So I see shortages. I see things being harder to come by. I see us getting by slowly by working together and by conserving resources and sharing them. Ultimately, this is about sharing. So one thing Spirit was very clear on when it comes to shortages of resources was we are absolutely not to hoard things. That is not a 5D energy. That is not going to be supported, and it is not going to thrive on the planet at this time. So that strategy will fail, and it will fail miserably, and it will harm many of us. So what do we do instead? What is Spirit encouraging us to do instead? Share. Ultimately, our inability to share is a big part of what has landed us in this mess in the first place. So sharing is the solution, and that means looking out for our brothers and sisters, understanding that not only should we be concerned about our needs, but we should care about our brothers and sisters' needs just as much as our own needs. And when we come from that place, what happens is we stop doing things selfishly that serve us but hurt someone else in the process. We start actually considering everyone's needs as we make decisions, and we become more mindful of it. That is ultimately what's going to turn things around for us on this planet. So sharing is a huge key right now to helping us get through this. And that means bartering. It means that the specific individual gifts, skills, abilities that you may have might differ from those of your neighbors. And that's okay. That's actually really good. That's why we're made different, right? We're not meant to all be alike. We have different strengths and we have different skill sets. What we're meant to do as we go through this challenging period of humanity's history is to share them with each other, to come together. If you are good at gardening, then you might be planting gardens and helping grow food that you might share with other people who suck at gardening. But maybe those people have other skills that they can give to you. So maybe they are good at mending things and you have things that need mending, and they can support you with that. So we all have different knowledge. We all have different skills. And what we need to do is really maximize those natural resources, maximize those things that we have that we can share with other people and put them to good use. We're going to be really moving away from dependency. And I think we've already seen, I don't think this is a surprise to anybody, but we're going to be moving away from dependency on big government for our needs. These governmental systems are shaking and they are wobbling right now for a reason. I think we're seeing this in multiple countries across the globe. And what the wobble is showing is it's showing that it's important for us to become more responsible for our own needs. That means that you're going to see a lot more coming together at the local level of communities uniting around common causes, communities, planting community gardens to feed their people, communities coming up with strategies that work for the folks that are living in their area to make sure that everybody's needs are met, that everybody has housing, that everybody has health care, that people are fed and clothed and housed, all of those important things, educated, right? It's going to happen at local levels. And that is going to be forced upon us because these larger structures that we have come to rely upon are going to wobble and they're going to start to fail us. They're just not going to be there. So don't expect them to be. Ultimately, what I heard Spirit say was, do not look to your government to provide your food any longer. They will not be able to be relied upon. You need to be able to source this yourselves. And that doesn't mean you yourself. That means you together with your brothers and sisters and your neighbors. Okay. And that's key. It's super key. It's the only way out of this and through this is together, ultimately. So, as far as oil specific, I would love to say that, it's nice to think, oh, well, let's not use oil. Let's just use solar, or let's just use wood, or, that's great. That's where we're heading. That's absolutely where we're heading. But guess what? That takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And we're just not there. We have not invested in the infrastructure that is needed to simply jump quickly to one of these alternatives. So this is going to get messy, because we just don't have the infrastructure there yet. And it's going to take time. But this is also the door that's going to open it. So these events unfolding, these shortages are what is going to make us, they're going to force us to have to pursue more seriously these new ways of doing things. It's showing us where we're too reliant on fossil fuels, where we're too reliant on oil. To manage our lives. We will be reaching a point where we will be shifting gears and moving towards more renewable resources, which ultimately will be better for everyone on a number of different levels, reducing pollution, improving health, healthier lungs, all of these things that come with it. In the end, ultimately, will we have rationing? Yeah, I do believe we're going to see rationing. And here's sort of what I was seeing with regards to oil is the guides were really kind of showing me what's going to happen first is that our access will be cut off, and then we will be relying on reserves. So rationing will be necessary because we will have a finite amount of oil that is available to meet our needs. And we are still heavily dependent. Most of us, if you think about your car is running on gas, your home is probably heated with natural gas or oil of some kind. Most homes aren't equipped anymore with the types of alternative heating systems that would be needed. You're not going to just light a fire in your living room if you don't have a fireplace, right? So there are logistical barriers to quickly switching gears with this. It will be a slow moving train. So we will be slow to move to alternative fuel sources. And initially there's still a lot of impetus and push to support the oil industry. That's not gonna change overnight. That'll be over time. So what you're going to see is still a lot of support for big oil and an attempt to rescue it, an attempt to save it. And while that might seem, counterintuitive, and it is in the long run, in the short run, it's necessary. And it's going to buy us time is what it's going to do. So these efforts to switch to more renewable energy sources are going to start slow, but have a strong finish is how it was delivered to me from Spirit. So we will start slow with our move or transition to those things, but we will end strong. So we will get there. We are going there. That is where this is all taking us. Because of this, I am hearing lifestyle shifts will be required. I do think we're going to see more work from home. I think we're going to see people consolidating their work days, traveling less because of shortages, because of rationing. I don't think we're going to have a choice. I kind of feel like that's going to happen. Do I think that this is going to be permanent or long-term? Absolutely not. We're going to still find ways to function. Ultimately, we are resilient beings. And we will find ways through this. That is the most important aspect of what I can bring through to you, is that we're smart, right? We have brains and we can think, and humans are great problem solvers. We have to be. And that is going to be the survival skill that we will be relying upon the most in the years to come. We're in for it for a while, you guys. This isn't going to be an overnight process. I do believe the next 2 to 3 years are probably going to be the most intense as far as like shifts and changes happening, like the wild roller coaster feeling. but I don't see things really stabilizing until after 2030. So we've got a few years yet of this. And even at 2030, I think we're still putting things in place, and there's still a lot of shifting happening. But the purge and the chaos of the purge, I feel like that's kind of the worst, honestly, from now until about 2030, 2035. So we've got a little ways to go. So we kind of got to buckle down. In the newsletter that I put out this month, I talked about that we need to be like bamboo. And if you think about bamboo, it's incredibly resilient, right? It can grow anywhere just about. And when you plant it, it will take over. It is very hardy. It has high survivability, and it is resilient. And it's strong. Bamboo is very strong. We make things out of bamboo because it is strong, right? Utensils, clothing, all kinds of things. Flooring. But bamboo is also flexible, and that's the key. It's adaptable, it's resilient, and it's flexible. It's strong and flexible at the same time. And that is how we're being asked to be over these next few years. We have to be willing to let go of the way things have always been. We have to let go of the way that we've always done things. We're being pushed, we're being challenged by the universe to find new ways to do things. And because we resist change, because it's uncomfortable, sometimes it takes a push. We have to be forced, and that's what's happening. That is ultimately what is happening and behind a lot of the changes and the chaos that we're seeing happen in the world. This will get easier. So just like with 2020, things were really hard. Those first few months, it was really hard. But then it got easier. And now there's a lot of things that are just normal that before 2020 weren't normal at all. Work from home wasn't a thing, right? You went to work. Zoom meetings. You didn't have Zoom meetings all the time, but you do now. And ultimately, we had this technology. We could have shifted our lifestyle a long time before. We had technologies to make our lives easier and more convenient, to have better work-life balance, but we weren't using them for no better reason than that we just never had to before, and that we were just continuing to do things the way we'd always done them. So what's happening now is very similar. We're going to get used to new ways of doing things. So it will be hard at first, but it will become more and more things that we are just used to, and it won't be as hard. It will feel better as we go forward. So there's a little hope in that for you. One thing that I did see coming in the future, which I think will ultimately be helpful as we're trying to make this transition, depending less on oil and fossil fuels and beginning to build the infrastructure that is needed to support more sustainable, renewable energy sources, is something that came through. It looks to me like a ceramic device that essentially allows us to use less fuel but generate more heat. So I saw some type of a device. It comes through a ceramic, something that would transfer or heat up, and that could be fitted to existing like HVAC systems or heating systems that we currently have, that would allow us to heat our homes with less fuel. And it's essentially like an interim solution. So I do feel that is a future invention that will be coming in, or some type of a device that features a ceramic component or ceramic aspect that allows this heat transfer to occur. It just feels like it takes a lot less fuel to generate a lot more heat. So whoever comes up with this is going to be very successful, make a lot of money ultimately. And so that will help us. So again, there's going to be new inventions, and this is not the only one. This is just one that I was being shown. So we're going to have like ingenuity and technology advances. People are going to come up with better ideas and new ways to do things that will ultimately make it easier for us to get through this time. I do feel we're going to work from home more. I think I mentioned that, consolidating our days, not traveling as much for work or events. I do think we're going to be shifting a little bit back to more distance calls, Zooms, things like that. As far as food goes, I do think we are moving away from dependence on large farms and agriculture and more towards home gardening and local community gardening and co-ops and things of that nature. This is also going to mean less dependence on animal proteins, and we will be looking for more plant-based proteins. I am already seeing this happen just because of food prices, you guys. I don't think that this is rocket science that this is coming in. We do have a lot of really great sustainable plant-based proteins that can meet your nutritional needs and help support a healthy diet. And I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan. I like meat just like a lot of people do. I'm not saying you need to give up eating meat. I think what's going to happen is it's naturally going to phase itself out because we just don't have the resources to continue to support it anymore. And I think that we're going to also, more and more people are going to be looking for ways to feed their families with less resources and less money. And because of that, it's going to give rise to that, hey, we have other ways to do this that use less resources on a big scale, or that don't depend so much on large farms and agricultural businesses to be sustainable, things that we can do in our backyards, things that we can grow even, on our apartment balconies. People are going to be looking for alternatives. I also saw this giving rise to an increase in the usage of like protein supplements and protein powders and things of that nature as well. Again, they're already super popular. I don't think this is a surprise, but I think people who maybe weren't using them before, who haven't really been interested in them before, are going to actually start looking to them as alternatives to pricey or hard to come by animal proteins, at least temporarily. And ultimately, this is going to be healthier. So some of the changes, and not just the meat piece, but also just because we're gonna be eating more produce in general. I do see less dependence on, things that are manufactured, prepared, prepackaged. So we are gonna be growing more of our own things to eat, which means that we ultimately will see reductions in heart disease, cardiovascular diseases. And one of the biggest things that came through from Spirit that was kind of interesting to me was that this is also occurring because humanity needs to reconnect to the earth. That so many of us have really become disconnected, and it's causing all kinds of maladies and depression even, and feelings of unease. And many people feel ungrounded and they don't even know what that is or what that means. And so there's a real big need for us to reconnect to Mother Earth, the way my guides put it was to feel her nurturance, to feel what it feels like to be nourished by our Earth Mother, and to really connect with that she is our provider of nourishment, that she is our provider of food and of oxygen and of water, that ultimately she provides everything that we use to make anything and everything that we have came from her originally in some form or another. And we need to kind of get back to that awareness. And so some of this is unfolding and happening to really bring us back home to Mother Earth. This is also going to help us care more about Mother Earth and preserving her, and working together with other countries and other peoples to support her and sustain her ultimately. One of the things that we can do when it comes to future shortages, other than not panicking and not hoarding, is that we can actually start conserving now. Don't wait for the shortages to come. Spirit said very clearly to me, you can conserve now. Start getting used to it now. Start making those shifts before we're in a position where we have to do it urgently or emergently. It makes more sense to start looking at where we can reduce our reliance and consumption of those things in the present moment. And that the more we can do that, the better. If we can start conserving, oil, for example, now, we're going to be in less dire straits later when we can no longer obtain it. I do feel like that is coming. I don't like to be the bearer of bad news. And of course, this is subject to change. Look, anything that we see psychically is a current projection. And collectively, we are all writing the story together. It is not set in stone. So these things can change. My gosh, if they change for the better, I am all for that. I don't mind being wrong. It's okay. But right now, based on what I'm seeing and picking up, perceiving intuitively, psychically, I do see us reaching a point of a shortage, not beyond shortage. I actually think we're going to have a period of time, albeit it may be short, but I think we're going to have a period of time where we simply won't be able to access oil at all anymore from outside of what we already have. Part of why I say that is some of the things that Spirit was showing me with regards to some of the occurrences happening at the Strait of Hormuz right now. And it's interesting. I actually don't think that this is coming from, I don't think that this is currently on the radar yet, but and it almost doesn't feel intentional, but I almost get this sense that we're going to have something that occurs there that results in a destruction or lack of current infrastructure that is already in place. It just feels like something gets destroyed to the point where it's no longer able to be utilized by anyone. Because this feels like it's not like one country benefiting against another country. It feels like something that happens there that ultimately results in the strait no longer being usable by anyone. And I don't like to put out, worst case scenarios, but I am concerned that that is coming and that could be happening. And that when that does happen, that there will at least be a period of time in which there's a need to rebuild some things or some structures, or to put something new in place for countries to obtain what they need fuel-wise. And I do think they will, but at least there will be a period of time I feel like there will be no oil moving through there at all for anyone. And I don't really feel like we've seen that in any meaningful capacity yet. But I believe that we are going to see it. I also, when I was recording this, when I was channeling this earlier this week, the message came through of, that the strait was open, but that it probably wouldn't stay open. So I think that's an evolving situation and is certainly subject to change. So hopefully any shortages will be short term. But again, why is this happening? Well, it's happening to help us see that this reliance on oil isn't good. So how long will shortages last? Well, as long as it takes for us to get the lesson, right? It's until we learn. It's until we figure it out and we start doing things different. That's why this is occurring in the first place. Because ultimately, our reliance on it isn't good for us and it isn't good for the planet. And so it has to shift. It has to change. That's part of this shift that we're making to 5D Earth. We are also really in a huge process of heart healing collectively. We are learning how to grieve, how to open our hearts, to be more vulnerable with one another, to communicate from the heart with one another. We are learning how to tap into a sense of love for ourselves. Many of us are working on deep self-love and purging old pain and wounds in the heart space, purging betrayals, working through and learning lessons of betrayal right now, and learning forgiveness, learning unconditional love, lessons around unconditional love, lessons around forgiveness and letting go so that we can move forward in a more heart-centered way. And we are purging and clearing old heart-related wounds and pain as a part of that. And that is happening individually and that is happening collectively. And that is a huge thing that needs to continue. It is ultimately a big part of what is anchoring in New Earth energies and will continue to be, I think, an area of focus for healers and light workers in the days and years to come. One of the things that Spirit said to me was, well, how can we help? What can we do? Be love. Be love. Love yourself. Love yourself. Love your neighbors. Love each other. There's so much talk about Jesus and Jesus's teachings, and in both positive ways and even, in some funny and maybe not so funny ways with, memes and things like that coming out and comparisons and all. But ultimately, what was Jesus's message? At the core of it was love. Love each other. Love one another. And that is hard to do, right? It's not always easy. How good are we at this in our own homes? Do we always love each other? Probably not, because sometimes we piss each other off. Sometimes we get angry. The more that we can learn how to navigate those kinds of things at that micro level with open hearts, the better we will be able to do it as a collective and on, more of a political level, a global level. It starts in the home. It starts with us. You can pray. The guides were showing me specifically meditations and prayer where we actually wrap the earth in violet light. I'm not sure that this is necessarily violet flame energy, although violet flame energy is a fantastic purging, healing energy. But I saw us just wrapping the earth in a soothing, calming, healing purple light. So you could picture the earth and just imagine and visualize this beautiful purple light wrapping around her and comforting and holding her and protecting her and healing her. We can pray, we can light candles in prayer and set our intentions. We can call in angelic support. The more of us that request angelic support, the better. Angels love to help, and they can do lots of amazing, miraculous things for humanity, but they have to be asked. We have to call them in. So those of us who are, doing healings and prayers and light work on the planet, if you're looking for, special meditations, that's a great place to start, calling in the angels and having them hold that energy of love around the planet Earth. So one of the things that's really, I think, scaring people is, are we going to have World War III, right? And some would probably say we already are having World War III, and I can't necessarily fully disagree with those who say that or feel that way. However, I think when most of us think of World War III, we actually think of something more escalated than what we have already seen. And I don't think we're there quite yet. And so ultimately, I posed this question to Spirit, to my guides, and I asked, is that coming? Is that where this is all heading? Is it going to get worse? Is it going to get bigger, like what we've seen in the past with World War I and World War II? And ultimately, the answer I got back was no. And that should be a comfort for us at this time, ultimately. And I did hear, no, it will not get that bad. I do not believe it's going to get that bad. I don't think it's going to have to get that bad for us to learn the lesson. And I think that's why we're going to have some of these shortages. One of the things that Spirit was showing me was this, war is it's an old way of doing things, of getting things done. And it is not supported by 5D energy. It's not supported by these new energies. It is not the future of humanity. It's not where we're going. So we have to learn how to resolve things without war, and how to communicate without resorting to threats and violence. And wars are violent. They are, ways of forcing things to happen rather than working together to make them happen. And that is ultimately something we are moving away from as a collective. So what's going to start happening is that when people initiate wars, their efforts are going to backfire. They're just not going to be supported in that by the universe, okay? By God, by source. What's going to start happening, Spirit was showing me, is a slingshot effect, where, you fire missiles on another country and it goes to hell in a handbasket. I think we're already kind of seeing that with the war in the Middle East at the moment, where, people think that it's going to go like it has in the past with other, ventures, and instead it backfires immediately. We're going to see that kind of instant karma effect or slingshot energy happening. And ultimately, I kept hearing no winners. There will be no winners. There will be no success and no winners. People who want to initiate wars on this planet, they're not going to win. They're not going to succeed. No matter what they're trying to do with it, if they are trampling on other people, they will get trampled. That's what's going to happen. I think we're going to see it. It can happen in a multitude of ways, but it's going to become almost universal law. And that's where we're going to see shifting away from it. People will give it up because it just doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't produce results. And ultimately, that is a key. Now, I asked about nuclear, missiles. Obviously there's been threats of that. I feel like there's been, lots of talk of that in different countries. And I really get a resounding no. I really get a resounding no. I don't think we're going to be allowed to blow ourselves up. I really don't. I believe very strongly that we are being protected. It's not in the collective's best interest for that to occur. And so I do feel that there are divine forces in place and in play who are supporting us to prevent that from occurring. I do feel like we will have missiles. I think we're going to continue to see missiles fired. But again, with that backlash, slingshot energy of it's just not going to produce positive results. And as people sort of start to realize that it's going to become such a pointless thing to do, that I think you're just going to see it phase out over time. Unfortunately, with that said, it's going to take us a little while to learn this lesson. And I was being told that we will not see this sense of pervasive feeling on the edge of war, or on the edge of a World War III, that pervasive imminent threat energy. I do not actually see that going away till at least 2030. So we've got a few more years where it's just going to feel like we're always on that edge, on that precipice. Please don't let that scare you. Don't let that produce these raising up this fear energy in you of, nuclear holocaust or apocalypse. Please don't buy into that bullshit. It's all over the internet, and we just don't need that. It's not helping. It's not real even. That's not where we're going. And interesting thing that I got with this, and I don't know anything about nuclear things, but I also was kind of being shown that, like, if somebody actually tried to, like, ignite, that it just wouldn't work. Like, it just wouldn't work. That there would be, like, structural, like, failures or mechanical failures of the equipment. And so I also was getting, and I don't understand all of this stuff, so take it with a grain of salt, but I was seeing something along the lines of, too, that some of these are actually really old. That some of it's been, like, things that were actually built a long time ago and are actually starting to degrade, and that's going to continue. That these things that were built a long time ago, or that we've had or already have been built over time, will start to degrade to the point where they really aren't as functional anyway. But either way, I don't see them. I just don't see us getting to that point. I don't feel that we're going to get there. Now, other interesting thing with this is that, I know, like, there's all kinds of jokes going around about, like, won't the aliens just come and save us from ourselves? Can't we all ride away on a spaceship and, please come abduct our leaders? We're ready for rescue. Please understand that humanity has to rescue herself. We are not going to be rescued. That is not permitted. We have to learn a lesson. We will get support. We will get help from our brothers and sisters in the skies, but not yet. And one of the things that was being shown was this war energy, this desire to annihilate other beings from existence. That energy must go away before disclosure, really true disclosure, happens. So part of what we're seeing right now is us moving towards eventually the laying down of arms. But before this energy peters out, it's ramping up, right? And that's what we're living in right now. We're seeing the ramp up before the burning out phase. We just haven't gotten to the burning out phase. It's coming, though. So there's a lot of reasons to be hopeful. Please don't let this get you scared or fearful or want to go hide in a cave somewhere for the rest of your life. Look, you're here to live. You're here to live. And as a medium, I can tell you, if the worst happens, you would just find yourself back on the other side. You would be perfectly fine and whole and yourself. So there's nothing to fear here but fear itself. The fear itself is actually causing more damage and more harm. So, but before we get disclosure, before we get help from our extraterrestrial galactic brothers and sisters, we have to be willing to lay down arms first. And that was a message I was getting very clearly. It's our lesson to learn, and they cannot interfere in it. As far as USA, just kind of on USA, I don't really want to talk about today about, like, specific leaders or political camps. I think that what we need to understand in the USA is that this divide, this deep divide that we're experiencing, is sort of meant to happen. I feel this is destined. This is part of our growth in this nation. And it is leading to really big changes. I mean, we are going to continue to see some really big changes, but we're going to see fundamental core changes where the USA is never the same. And ultimately, I think we will see changes in our structure, our governmental structures starting to happen because of this. And part of that I actually feel like is going to be a falling apart, like a disintegration, falling apart of things that begins, that kind of just forces people to mind their own selves and take care of their own communities and their own things. And so I think we're going to end up seeing more of this loose connection of principalities. They came through as principalities, not states. So I thought that was an interesting distinction that Spirit was making. It wasn't that we're all, because originally I kind of thought we would kind of be more state reliant, almost like each state sort of running as its own sort of separate government. But that's not how this came through. It was more of a loose collection of principalities. So that may be groupings of states, you know, or geographic areas that sort of come up with some interim strategies to manage themselves while other aspects of our government just aren't functioning properly. It came through. It's not really coming through as revolution energy, though, to me. It's coming through as disintegration, a breaking to just breakdown. Just, it's like the wheels coming off the fucking cart and it just doesn't go anywhere anymore. And so people go, oh, well, we can't rely on that anymore. So they just adapt. We just all adapt. That's kind of how it's coming in, rather than like some big fight or revolution or civil war. I actually kind of don't see that. This just feels like a falling apart. Feels like it just falls apart. And then so we just start rebuilding new things. And that's ultimately what we're doing. We're going to build something new. So I definitely see a lot of the current structures, leadership. I don't think it will last. I think we're going to see things kind of fall apart, but then be rebuilt by something so much better and so much stronger. So I really see a much better system rising out of the ashes of the old system. So I think we have some way to go before that happens, but have hope. There's a reason to have hope in all that we are going through here in the USA as well. Ultimately, at the heart of what is happening is that these changes are leading us to a better place. We're going through the hard part, but the hard part is shaking things apart. It's breaking things up. It's breaking things down to allow us to come up with new solutions. There's a lot of people right now who are just uncomfortable with this process of change and want it to just stop so we can just go back to how things used to be. That's not where we're going. And if you are clinging to that, you will be disappointed. I can promise you, you will be disappointed because we are not going back. We're not supposed to go back. And my concern with that energy is this: the more that we cling to what is known and comfortable, the more we cling to the old structures, the longer this is going to take. And the more drawn out it will become. Remember what I said about the future isn't written in stone. We're writing it as we go. We're creating it as we go together collectively. If we resist these changes in a positive direction, in that more 5D consistent direction, to the new earth energy, what we're going to really be stuck with is just a long, drawn out purge that just doesn't end, where we just feel like, in tarot, it'd be like hanged man energy, where we just feel stuck and miserable longer. So the sooner we get with the program, with what is new trying to come in, the sooner that we tap into our hearts and abandon some of the old structures that haven't really been working well for us for a long time. We've just been doing them out of habit or because we were used to them, or maybe we felt like we didn't have a choice. As we let them go and we embrace change and innovation, we're really going to see that leads to a lessening of the pinching or the pain of this transition. So we do have to embrace change. It's time for humanity to shift and change. And if we don't go willingly, then we get pushed. And that's what we're going to see happen. It'll just get harder the more we resist it. So the best thing to do is actually be forward thinking right now and really tapping into your creative energy, tapping into innovation, coming up with new ideas. I see a lot of potential for technology and more earth-based ways of doing things to really be married together and come together. And I think we're going to find ways to have be very deeply rooted to nature and the earth and kind of getting back to that while we still have technological advancements occurring. And that's going to be a really beautiful marriage. It sounds kind of counterintuitive or a little like almost like aren't those like opposite things, but actually that's sort of an illusion I think we're having to overcome, that they aren't really separate and that they can work really beautifully together. And so, the image I kept seeing these like really amazing, beautiful like tree houses in my mind's eye. And I think that may have just been Spirit's way of showing it to me, to make me understand what they were explaining. But it's like the more that we can marry those things together and create technologies that promote the earth, that preserve the earth, that sustain the earth, that allow us as humans to continue to be very deeply rooted into her energy and supported by her, connected to her, the better, the healthier we're actually going to be. I think we're going to actually see, as these things finally open up into the new, I think we will actually see great improvements in people's mental health, in people's physical health, in their energy levels. I do think we're going to see a lot of strides in healthcare and changes around healthcare and how we provide healthcare and receive healthcare. And I do think down the road, we'll have new structures for how that's done. In the interim, I think there's going to be more of a push towards, becoming responsible for your individual healthcare and learning how to be less reliant on those old structures and coming up with new things, new ways to do things. And it'll feel a bit like the wild, wild west for a bit, where we're a little more self-reliant, almost having to turn inward and focus just, okay, how do I get by day to day without these things that I've been kind of used to being there, helping and doing these things for me. But eventually we're going to go back to more structured ways of doing certain things, and we will have new structures coming in to take the place of the old. So a good place to focus right now is to focus on building the new. That's really going to be more helpful to us than fighting old things or arguing about things that are, shifting. We really need to just start focusing on how can we help? How can we make it better? How can we come up with new ways of meeting our needs collectively that serve humanity and serve the earth without hurting someone else or stepping on someone else's toes? I do know there's a lot of concern about war crimes right now and, just criminal activities in general especially amongst leadership, but not just amongst leadership. Part of New Earth energy, there's a heavy justice component and karmic component to that where, justice gets served, truths are seen. And I think we're already starting to see that it's very hard to hide, crimes these days, right? Things that have been hidden for generations are being shown. They're coming out into the light. That's part of the increase of the light on the planet. It's rooting these things out. It's making them be seen. It's showing them to us so we can no longer ignore them. So we have to heal and we have to change. With that, though, I do feel you will see prosecutions for war crimes. There will be war criminals being persecuted as a result of this. And it's interesting. I don't feel like it's any one country. I feel like it's everyone collectively coming together, similar to what was done during World War II with Adolf Hitler, where countries actually came together and united to prosecute the Nazis. And I think we're going to see similar types of things happen with some of what's happening now. With that said, I received a message of warning from Spirit with that, a caution, rather. Not no, warning's maybe too strong of a word. The caution is that there will be those who will be out for blood, and that we are being urged to pull back on that energy. Justice, yes. Blood, no. So we have to make sure that justice is also fair and fairly administered and done in a way that is responsible as well. So we have, again, heart-centered, right? Heart-based, loving. How do we serve justice in ways that protects people, but also does not vilify or cause more and further harm to someone else? In what I think is ultimately the heart of that is eye for an eye energy, right? Like, it's, why have we had wars? Why do we get stuck in these kinds of battles? Because we continue to engage in that eye for an eye energy. We continue to make new villains and go after them. And so we have to be careful that however we handle that it's done in a way that does not create or come from revenge energy or set us up for future conflicts again. that's going to be key. It's going to be really important. As far as some of the things that I mentioned earlier about the Hormuz Strait and that I was a little concerned that we might see an unintentional shutting down of that maybe like a whoopsie or something that happens as an unintended consequence of somebody's actions. If that occurs, I did see something very helpful to me, which was I saw a Geneva Convention like coming together of different countries of the globe to resolve it. So there's also a lot of opportunities in some of these political global conflicts that, you know, on one hand, we're looking at the threat and worry of, oh, this is going to be World War III. What we're not seeing is this is also planting the seeds for people coming together, countries coming together, working together more collaboratively than ever before. And that's where we're heading. This is ultimately opening the door again to unity consciousness, to seeing that what happens to one country affects other countries too, that we're all impacted by the things we're doing on this planet and to each other, that it comes back around. And so we're going to learn the value of helping each other out, of working together in ways that doesn't cause harm to another party. And so that's ultimately the spiritual lesson under all of this. And it's at the heart of it. So those are the places we want to kind of focus our energy. Where can we collaborate more? Where can we share more? Where can we help each other more? How do we support each other and help each other so everyone's needs are met to the best of our ability to do so? That's the New Earth energy. And so be cautious. You know, when I say like be prepared for shortages, that also means we can't slip into that old school prepper mentality, because some of that old prepper mentality is very every man for himself, you know, and protecting and hoarding resources and not sharing them, and you know, committing acts of violence against other people who are threats to those resources. That's how we got here as a human collective. That's how we landed in the position that we're in. So it's not the solution. It will never be the solution. It will never get us to New Earth. All it will do is make this so much more miserable and drag this out longer for us. So come together, work together, sharing and collaborating, unifying. That is the solution. And ultimately, it's the outcome too. It's what's happening. It's why this is all happening. It is opening doors to the New Earth. It is opening up new opportunities and new possibilities. And so there is a lot of beauty and light also streaming into this planet at this time. And there are so many reasons for us to look forward to the future and to feel hopeful about the future. And we don't want to shut that down right now. So I hope that this message helps bring realism about like the world we're living in right now, but also an understanding of why this is happening, and that it is serving a higher purpose and ultimately a good purpose, of that this is leading us to a better place in the end, and that we're not just going to wipe each other off of the planet and annihilate it. We are actually still on track and moving towards something better. But we have to stop fighting that process, right? We have to start supporting it instead. And I hope that some of the things in this video help motivate you and help lead you in the right direction for how you can support that process in your own way, in your own homes, and with your own loved ones and your own communities. I hope that this message finds you well. I'll be back down the road with some more messages. Take care, guys. And if you haven't already, hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and hit subscribe to stay abreast of any new content that I put out. Bye.